7 keys to activate your divine feminine power is the topic of today's Soul, Sovereignty, and Sexuality podcast with myself, Jessica Falcon, International Soul Embodiment Guide and Relationship Expert. And one of the reasons I want to drop into divine feminine power is because it is very misunderstood. It has unfortunately become an image, right? If you look on social media, particularly Instagram, you see all these images of what the divine feminine supposedly looks like or acts like. It is usually wearing these long, flowy dresses or lighting candles or having roses. And all of those can be aspects of that sensual nature, aspects of ritual, aspects of creating sacred space, which are aspects of divine feminine power. But divine feminine power is not a ritual in and of itself. Divine feminine power is an energy, it is an essence, it is a power within you that is being expressed through perhaps what you wear or what you do or what you choose to have. And it's a very important distinction because in order to activate your divine feminine power, it's really about activating your soul. It's about activating your soul in your body. It's about activating your life force energy. So I'm going to talk about these 7 keys in more detail before I continue listing them off. I have a little list with me today because I could talk about divine feminine power for eons. And, you know, I've done a couple of other episodes on sacred feminine power and my own journey into sacred feminine power because I was led on an 8-year initiation into divine feminine power by the goddess herself, starting in 2013. And the awareness of the divine feminine, and then the activation, and then the embodiment of that is a journey, particularly because the feminine as divine has been suppressed and oppressed and denied. And quite frankly, it's been really dangerous for us to reclaim these aspects of ourselves. And so in order to reclaim our divine feminine power, we have to confront the subconscious mind and the fears that are usually in the nervous system, because your nervous system is energy and it can travel with you from life to life, and in your energy body that you've carried from life to life, of being killed for being in your power, of being tortured for speaking your truth or being aware of magic. So keep all of that in mind as I list off these 7 keys, that this is a journey. That's why I offer divine activation portals to work one-on-one with clients so that you can really access and transmute your subconscious mind and heal that karma and heal that trauma in order to come into the truth of who you are and really activate this level of power and sovereignty within you. So, okay. All right. Number 1 key, divine feminine power, is the body. The body. You accessing your body, not as a physical object, but as energy. You accessing the wisdom of your body, the inner voice that lives within you by going into your body. And most of us live up in the head, right? You're at a computer, you're on a screen, you're thinking, you're doing. Most people even walk from the head, right? When I teach yoga, I teach online portal yoga classes, and they take you really deep into your body and your body's wisdom. And when I teach at retreat centers and when I teach around in other places, I see that a lot of people don't know what it's like to move from the body up, to move from the breath, and to link our movement with our breath. And so just think about how much time a day you spend in your body, okay? Maybe it's when you're working out. Maybe you do embodied meditations. Maybe you, right? Like, what are the ways that you're in your body? Maybe you dance every day. Maybe you do yoga. What are the ways you're in your body? And then when you are working out, say, are you bringing your awareness into the inside of your body, or are you just moving your body? Because that was me. I started working out in high school, but I was just moving my body like it was an object. I was essentially dominating my body. If I wanted to go further on the bike, for example, or run harder, my body, I said, will do what I want it to do. I wasn't in relationship with my body, to listen to my body, to move from the inside out. And there's a massive difference. Because when we start to connect to the body as energy and place our awareness inside and develop a new relationship with the body, we are developing a relationship with our inner self, our true self, our soul self, and we're listening. So feminine power is receptive because you are receiving the wisdom within you. You are receiving your inner voice, your soul voice. You are receiving the present moment. You are receiving what is happening. You are receiving your feelings, which we'll talk about as one of the next keys. And when you're in your head and moving the body just because, right, this is what the head says to do, versus receiving what your body wants and receiving your body's cues, receiving your body's signals, then you're missing out on the information that could be available to you. Think about when you connect to your body, do you trust the information you receive? Because a second key to divine feminine power is trusting the invisible. To trust what you feel, not because your feelings are your truth, because they're not. Your feelings are guideposts. Your feelings can guide you to your soul truth, but your feelings are energy and they are moving through you for a reason. And if you simply suppress them and push them down and don't access that wisdom, then you're not able to know yourself. Divine feminine power requires deep levels of self-knowledge. You have to know yourself, your inner self, your true self, which you access through the body. And then you have to trust what you receive and act on it. Trust what you receive and journal about it. Question it. I'm feeling this. Is this feeling my truth? What thought is this feeling rooted in? What belief is this thought rooted in, right? This is the path to sovereignty, is to examine your thoughts, examine your emotions, examine your energy, examine your soul, and come into that inner alignment and that inner union as you align to your soul truth. Now, if you're thinking, I have no idea how to do this, that's why I created the Sacred Body Wisdom Foundational Series. There are also going to be in-person workshops around the country this year. This is an opportunity for you to learn how to connect with your body as energy in a new way. Okay, so I'll put the link to that below. You can read more about that on the website at thepathtosovereignty.com. Trusting the invisibles, also trusting your inner voice and what it's telling you, which is the voice of your soul. When you learn how to distinguish between the voice of the soul and ego, you have to do that first. You have to know and be able to distinguish between the voice of the soul and the voice of the ego, which is, again, part of the program, and also a journey of exploration of self-knowledge. When you trust the voice of the inner soul, it's because your soul is infinite. Your soul is not bound by time and space, and therefore your soul knows what your mind cannot know. Your mind is limited to time and space. Your soul is beyond that. And so when you can learn and start to trust yourself, what you're trusting is this infinite part of you. It's also about trusting what you see, which is generally going to be, even whether it's a visual or you can see and sense energy. You can see and sense a motivation of someone. You can see and sense their ulterior motivation. If they're saying one thing, but you feel something else, trusting that. That is your discernment. Now, discernment technically is a divine masculine power, but we are all of that. So this is applicable whether you are man, woman, it doesn't matter what gender, sex you are. We all have divine feminine, we all have divine masculine. And this is about honing those qualities within us. And you can't technically have one without the other, because the greater your divine masculine, the greater your divine feminine, the greater your divine feminine, the greater your divine masculine. It's really about union. So it's trusting the invisible. It's trusting. This is the second key, divine feminine power. It's trusting your knowing, your intuition, your sense about someone. You can question, but not doubt. There's a difference. Trusting what you see and sense and feel inside, and then using that as a tool for greater self-knowledge. The third key, and this relates to the first two, is that it's about honoring the feeling state, honoring your emotions. And so many of us have been indoctrinated with the idea that feelings are weak and it is inferior to feel. Believe me, I have struggled with this one for a long time. Many of you, if you've been listening before, know that I was an attorney and criminal prosecutor for 7 years, and I was a women's rights advocate. I spoke at rallies. I changed laws and policies, you name it. I was there. I was involved. And I still didn't know what divine feminine power was. I still didn't really understand feminine empowerment and feminine embodiment, because I was coming at it from this wounded aspect of the conditioning I had received, the program we all have received, which told me that it was actually weak to be feminine. So part of my quote empowerment was to become more masculine so that I could show I was worthy, show I was valuable, show that I was just as intelligent. And that meant suppressing and denying the feminine aspects of myself, which feel. Because the reality is, as much as we've been told in the spiritual world or even in the New Age world that feelings are inferior or weak, or if you're spiritual enough, you shouldn't feel or be bothered by anything or care. There's basically teaching apathy as a spiritual path, which is anything but being fully alive, and radiant, which is divine feminine power. The heart feels. When your heart is open, you feel. You can't help but feel. The question is what you do with the feelings. Now, to be sovereign is not to let your feelings take over you. You are the one witnessing your feeling, and you are the one in power, not your feeling, not your thought, not your belief, not your programming. And your feelings are just your heart having an experience of life. So at the end of the day, if I had to say the divine feminine was one thing, it's life. It's embodied presence, life. You are alive. Okay, so let's let this take us to the fourth key, which is your life force energy is activated. And this is related to the feeling, the third key. So I'll talk about them together, because when you suppress your feelings, you are also suppressing your life force energy. Your life force energy is your vitality. It is your radiance. It is your ability to be fully here, fully now, fully alive, sensual, sexual, embodied, present with what is. You are not avoiding anything. You're not denying anything. You can breathe life into everything. That is your life force energy. That is your feminine power. That is your serpent power. So the divine feminine has historically been connected with serpent power, because serpent power is, some call it kundalini, but it is the goddess moving in and through you. It is earth, life moving in and through you, living you, moving you, embodying you. And this is the pleasure that we are meant to experience here in life. And this is also the pleasure that we have been denied, because we've been told that it's more spiritual to direct your awareness up and out of life than in life, because we forgot the divine feminine, which is we are here now as divine beings. We don't go anywhere else to access that. So the divine feminine says, yes, recognize your life as sacred, because you are living as the divine being that you are. And that divinity that is in you, that is with you, expressing in and as you, if you let it, is driving your desires, driving your pleasure. So I'm not talking about banal pleasures. I'm not talking about the kind of pleasure that is rooted in ego, an ego sense of gratification. Egoic gratification is not the same as sensual embodied sacred pleasure. They are two radically different things. And because this is an overview today, I'm not going to go into massive detail about that, but I do have a holy sensuality retreat that I am co-facilitating on June 20th through 22nd in Pennsylvania. So if that calls to you, that life force energy activation and that sensual embodied pleasure, then that retreat is for you. So that's in Pennsylvania over the solstice portal, and I'll put the link below. Also, the Sacred Body Wisdom Foundational Series really activates this within you as well. So that brings me to the fifth key. I hope I'm getting my numbers right here, which is the soul. So the feminine is the soul, and the soul is the individuated aspect of the divine that is you. And so to come into union with your soul, to anchor into your soul truth, is divine feminine power. Because you are coming into union with the most sacred, holy part of you and allowing it to express in and through you, again, a more receptive state. You're allowing it, you're opening to it, you're allowing your soul to guide you, you're allowing the inner voice to speak to you, and you do this by going into the body, the first key, because we access the energy of the soul in and through the body. That's why I call myself a soul embodiment guide, because I help people to embody the soul, the divine truth, which is the path to reclaiming sovereignty. Did an episode on that last week. Sovereignty requires that you source love and safety and belonging, value, worth from within. So you're operating from overflow. We can't do this if we're not connected to our divinity. Because if we're not connected to our divinity, the ego's in control. And when the ego is in control, it's in lack, it's in separation consciousness. And that's why this reclamation of divine feminine power necessitates the divine masculine, which is the consciousness of our divinity, infusing our body, life, because we need both. And this union of body and soul, this union of matter and spirit, this union of the consciousness of the divine with your life is what dispels that separation consciousness and is what allows you to then be sovereign and release those core wounds of shame and guilt and doubt and blame, powerlessness, victimhood, fear, unworthiness. That's, again, the core of the work I do. When you enter a divine activation portal with me to work with me one-on-one, use the Sacred Body Wisdom Workshop and my retreats in Greece coming up this fall, or the Holy Sensuality in Pennsylvania, it doesn't matter. When you come into my field, when you come into one of my offerings, one of my portals of transformation, this is the core of the work that we're doing together, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Because that union, that consciousness of union with the divine that you are, is what creates the capacity for you to do everything else I'm talking about, to be in your power, to be in your sovereignty, to be in your divine feminine, to be fully alive, to be fully radiant, to be in your wealth, to be in your abundance, to transmute old karmas and traumas and all of that, to create freedom in your relationships. It's the key. So this awareness of the soul. Now, I defined soul in last week's episode because, again, you might hear some people talk about soul versus spirit, and it can be really confusing. And we all have our own different interpretations and different definitions. The one I'm talking about is the part of you that is divine, expressed in form, the part of you, the innate divinity that is you, that travels from lifetime to lifetime, which is not linear, by the way. It's all happening past, present, time, future at the same moment, which is why we use the now moment to transform. We use the now moment to align. We use the now moment to reclaim your sovereignty, because it is the now moment in which you can literally shift your energy and shift every other past, future, present life. Okay. It's an episode on healing past lives, and I talk more about that, I believe, in that episode. So you can go back to that. Okay, so all right, 2 more keys. So 6 is embodying love. Is your divine feminine power. This is the key to embody love. Why? The divine feminine is love. Trying to reclaim the divine feminine or divine feminine power without embodying love is like, it's impossible. And that's why when you're on a journey of the divine feminine, your heart will be purified. And sometimes, at least for me, this was the hardest part of the path. Because especially coming as a criminal prosecutor, this is one example. I had this desire in me to hold, I would say hold people accountable, but it was actually more than that. It was to punish people for wrongdoing. I wanted to punish them. I wanted to make them bad. I wanted to make them wrong. I wanted them to hurt the way they hurt others, which is really, of course, also something that was happening in me. I wanted other people to hurt the way they hurt me so that they would stop. And I know that this was a karmic thing from other lifetimes too. And one of the many experiences that I had on my own divine feminine power initiation is really accessing the wounds that created that desire within me so that I could heal it by accessing the feelings, right? And then aligning that to my soul truth, which is, yes, I can hold people accountable, but this desire to punish was rooted in separation consciousness, and it was actually rooted in powerlessness. And transmuting that within myself to purify my heart, to operate only from divine love, not human love, not human sense of justice, divine love. The frequency of your soul is the frequency of divine love. And the frequency of the divine feminine is the frequency of divine love. So in order to come into your divine feminine power, it is about attuning every aspect of you to divine love. Every thought, every belief, every feeling, every emotion, every choice, every action, every word, your body, your energy, attuning into the frequency of divine love. Now, this is part of the Sacred Body Wisdom Foundational Series. If you're like, how in the world do I do that? There are practices that allow you to do this. And this is basically, I think at full price, it's like less than $25 per activation. So very affordable. Okay. The 7th key. And believe me, there are so many more aspects to this, as you can probably tell from the way that I'm talking. Nothing is black and white. Nothing is linear. And all of this is a spiral process. When we're talking about the divine feminine, this is not linear. This is spiral. This is, you go to deeper and deeper layers. You go to deeper, deeper levels. I have been consciously on the path of the divine feminine in this lifetime for 15 years. No, more than that, actually, 2008. So whatever that is to 2025. Consciously on the path. And I'm always accessing deeper layers of embodiment, deeper layers of awareness, deeper layers of my soul, deeper layers of consciousness, deeper layers of power and sovereignty. It is a spiral. And we're going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And really, the deeper we go, the more subtle it becomes, the more finely tuned you're becoming. And the 7th key to your divine feminine power is remembering your connection to the goddess, your connection to all of life, your connection to the earth, your connection to the elements, your innate connection. You are made of earth. You are one with the earth. You are made of water. You are one with the water. You are made of air. You are one with the air. You are made of fire. You are one with the fire. You cannot be separate from the elements. You cannot actually be separate from life. Even if you hole yourself up in the house for years, you're still breathing air. You're still eating food. You're still drinking water. You are still alive. And these elements exist within you. And so the goddess is this. The goddess is life. The goddess, since ancient times, we're talking 5, 7, 8, 10, 30,000 years ago, was a representation of life, was the representation of earth. And she's a conscious, living, breathing entity. We don't communicate with her in the way that we do a human. She can appear to us in different forms, but she is a consciousness that lives and breathes and infuses us. And that is the activation of your life force energy. That is the activation of your union, your love, your capacity to be all of who you are. It is remembering this innate connection to all of life. And again, for me, this was a hard one because I had felt disconnected from spirit, disconnected from God, abandoned by God. I had felt alone, like I was always alone, doing everything alone, unsupported. These are wounds of being disconnected from the goddess. These are wounds of being disconnected from God's source. These are wounds of being disconnected from the divine that you are. And divine feminine power is remembering these connections, and not only remembering them on an intellectual level, but shifting your frequency, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, shifting into an embodied knowing of this state of union, love, and empowerment, because you are God, goddess in form. And this came up in an episode that I did with Carla Ionescu, and she was mentioning, how do we know, right, the difference between the soul and the ego when we're talking about our own divinity? And one of the ways is divine love. And another way is when you are in your true God state, when you recognize the divine within you, when you are truly in your power, you can't help but recognize the divine in everyone and everything else. Anytime you want to dominate another, control another, deceive another, you're an ego. You are not in your divine God state. That's one way to determine soul versus ego. Because this sifting out of what is ego, the sifting out is what is a wound versus a soul truth, that's what I help my clients with, because sometimes that's the hardest to see yourself. Sometimes that's the hardest to figure out, because the mind can play these games and these spirals and go in circles and circles and justify almost anything. That's why people can justify mass rape or mass murder. They're justifying it. We can justify war. We can justify violence. We can justify anything. So it's not about that. It's about aligning to the divine truth that you are, and then acting as that and releasing anything that would prohibit you from being in and as expressing as that. So if you are wanting a deeper initiation into divine feminine power and activating these 7 keys within you, which are really almost portals to even more keys, right? But these are what I call the 7 primary keys of divine feminine power. Then I invite you into a divine feminine power initiation, which is a retreat in Greece this fall. We already have several spots filled. So if this calls to you, I highly recommend signing up sooner rather than later. We are going to Greece, and we are starting in Athens, which is named after the goddess Athena. We're going into the Mycenaean civilization area of Greece. We are going into Delphi. We are going to ancient temples of the goddess, and as a channel and a conduit, I am guiding you to bring this energy up, to access these codes, so that you activate your own wisdom and power within you. This is about remembering the goddess and activating your own power by receiving the wisdom at these ancient sites. It's going to be also just really fun. I love the food and the wine in Greece. It's literally one of my favorite places in the entire world, and I've traveled a lot around the world. It has a very special place in my heart. So I'll put the link to that below. You can also go to thepathtosovereignty.com and listen to these 7 keys over and over if you'd like, and start to look at where in your life you can deepen into at least one of these keys. If you want additional support with this right now, you can go to the Sacred Body Wisdom Foundational Series at thepathtosovereignty.com. I'll put the link below. And that also allows you to add on 3, 6, or 9 private sessions with me into a divine activation portal for a very affordable price that includes the Sacred Body Wisdom series, so that you can have that individually tailored support in which I connect to your energy system and your soul. And we do the activations and the clearings energetically, mentally, and emotionally that will help you really embody your power and sovereignty. So, sending you lots of love, and I will see you on the podcast next week. Be